It is the essence of life itself, the 6 billion chemical letters that make up our DNA. And along this string of molecules, like pearls on a necklace, groups of letters called genes that carry the code that explain, cell by cell, how we're created. This is the human genome, the operating system of our body, what some are calling the Book of Life. Deciphering the genome has become the holy grail in the greatest scientific race of our time. Much is at stake. Not only billions of dollars and immense scientific prestige, but the fear that this Book of Life will not be given to mankind for the benefit of all, but locked away for the financial advantage of a few. They call Dr. Venter the Sorcerer, the same name he gave to his 82-foot racing sloop. On the rare occasions he can get away from running his $4.5 billion biotech company, Dr. Venter is out on Chesapeake Bay, weather notwithstanding.
I don't care if everybody freezes their asses off. We're staying out here a while.
To many, Venter is a genius, a maverick scientist with an unparalleled reputation for finding genes, a multi-millionaire with one simple goal: be the first to decode the human genome.
It's the beginning of a future of medicine. It's the end of ignorance. At the start of this decade, 1991, there were less than 2,000 human genes known. At the end of the decade, or at the start of the next century, we're going to have all 75,000 known.
Racing Dr. Venter to the finish line is one of his old colleagues. Dr. Robert Waterston runs the Genome Sequencing Center at Washington University in St. Louis.
I've got it all set up, ready to go. As soon as I get it, I'm going to do it.
Dr. Waterston's lab is a key part of the Human Genome Project,
Yes,
a $3 billion, 13-year public effort that involves hundreds of scientists in half a dozen countries around the world.
And so the reason for the shatter is basically to find out if
Like Dr. Venter, their goal is to be the first to sequence the human genome.
This is a once in a species opportunity. This is more than once in a lifetime. It's akin to the realization in the Renaissance that the Earth was not the center of the universe.
The scientists aren't the only ones in the race. 10-year-old Lauren Reimer has a genetic disorder that makes her so weak she can barely walk. Decoding her faulty gene and engineering a new one is her only hope for a cure.
Lauren's disorder is very rare. Part of the solution will be finding the gene. And to do that, the genome is very important.
I don't have a specific answer, but I'll get Nodell.
Gene is the one who's really concerned, so.
I just want to let you know that, amongst all your other #1 priorities, this is one as well.
Dr. Craig Venter is a man in a hurry, and there's a lot riding on getting the genome first.
Why put all this money and effort into sequencing the human genome? If you had cancer, you wouldn't be asking that question. You can't go fast enough. You can't make discoveries fast enough. So, in terms of really changing medicine, we don't have the luxury of this little academic pace just to treat it as an academic project. This really affects people's lives.
To satisfy his obsession with speed, Craig Venter assembled the largest civilian computer facility in the world. It's these machines that catapulted him to the front of the race and formed the backbone of his business plan.
Host name, set the host name.
Celera Genomics is an internet company run from this control room. It plans to publish the raw human genome sequence for free, but it will charge from $5,000 to $50 million for access to its analyzed data. And it's the computers that allow Dr. Venter to use a radical new strategy to reassemble the Book of Life at lightning speed. He calls it the whole genome shotgun method because it begins by blasting the genome into 70 million pieces, small enough that a computer can decode them.
And then it's a giant jigsaw puzzle to put back together. Scientists like puzzles. This is a puzzle that we need very large computers to help solve, but it's a new approach that allows it to go very rapidly in one place.
Meanwhile, at Washington University, the public project operates very differently. Celera and other commercial gene hunters, every day the Human Genome Project publishes its raw data on the internet. As well, the process is much more labor-intensive, because here they start with the step that Dr. Venter skips, mapping. If our DNA was a road made up of chemical letters stretching across the country, mapping finds the landmarks and uses them to work out where on the road each letter belongs. To do this, the public project cuts up the DNA, clones each piece thousands of times, and uses the copies to laboriously rebuild the roadmap. Then, just like at Celera, each section of road is cut up into even smaller pieces. A machine then reads each chemical and marks it with a color. Then, using the map, each decoded section is returned to its place on the road, and the process is repeated until the entire genome is completed from one end to the other.
And I know his email's sort of not working very well, so that's why I'm calling instead of sending him a note.
Overall, it's a far slower method than Celera's. But Dr. Francis Collins, the man in charge of the Human Genome Project, argues it's the only way to ensure an accurate result.
The private efforts are doing what you'd call a rough draft, where they sequence a lot of DNA, but they don't really take responsibility for putting it all together correctly. There will be gaps, there will be mistakes in the assemblies. There will still be an incredible amount of useful information, but it will not be the complete, contiguous, highly accurate product which we will want for all time.
Francis Collins has the job of trying to defend a multi-billion-dollar budget for doing the same thing that a small biotech company is doing with 50 people. And he's, it helps if you're defending a budget to have an enemy, so he's trying to create an enemy out of us.
This is the book of life. Are we going to settle for a book that has missing pages, a lot of typos, a lot of mistakes where a chapter has been scrambled and something shouldn't be there and is? That might be okay for a first look, but that isn't what we want in the long run. The public effort will do it right.
Our work will be of the absolute highest scientific quality. Our sequence accuracy is higher sequencing accuracy than done by any group in the world.
While the animosity between the public and private camps over method may be intense, the real competition is over who will control the human genome and the medical breakthroughs it will unleash.
Are the tissue samples ready?
Yeah, I'm gonna go get them.
Dr. French Anderson is the father of gene therapy, a revolutionary branch of medicine. For 35 years, he's worked to find ways to use our genes to cure disease. The method he pioneered is deceptively simple.
Gene therapy is the putting of a good gene into a patient's cells to take the place of a bad gene or a gene that doesn't function properly.
As Dr. Anderson discovered, when the code in a gene is incorrect, it sends out a faulty message and we get sick. And he believes that once the human genome is decoded, the future of gene therapy will be unlimited.
Medicine does not now cure much of anything. If you have something that an antibiotic can treat, a bacterial infection, you can be cured. If you have appendicitis, you can be cured by an operation. But almost every other disease, all we as physicians do is treat the symptoms, and in order to allow the body time to heal itself. What gene-based medicine will do over the next century is to really revolutionize the whole practice of medicine. Diseases can be treated at their core, which will mean at the gene level.
One day, I'll be out there playing football or something.
Like you used to, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Lee Dupree has colorectal cancer. 5 years ago, doctors removed his rectum to save his life.
I had to take all this crap every day.
A year ago, when Lee thought he had the cancer beat, it came back again.
Man, I tell you, I have never felt that bad about anything in my life. Nothing. It put a stop on my life. Stop my life just like that.
Lee had a thriving career as a journeyman actor. Over the last 2 decades, he's appeared in more than 20 plays and movies, but the cancers put an end to even that.
It takes a big, big chunk out of your life. Sometimes when I'm here, man, I just start crying, man, you know what I mean? I just start crying because
there still is an abnormality there, so I don't think we can say that we've eradicated the tumor. But I think we've done something to control it because it's not changing.
Once a month, Lee visits with Dr. Robert Beert, the man who manages the care of former President Ronald Reagan.
As you recall, this is where, just going over things originally, you had a... For his original tumor, the survival rates are about 55 or 60% at 5 years. For somebody that has recurrence like this, probably the best statistics are 20 to 30% at 5 years. In his particular case, because the tumor is so large, it's probably substantially less than that. But we're going to have to watch it, and we'll just get x-rays periodically, and if we see a change, we'll deal with it then.
Yet despite the gloomy prognosis, there's hope for Lee. Dr. Beert heads a team of scientists at the University of Southern California who are on the cusp of a gene therapy breakthrough that could save Lee's life.
Is this from the control animal now?
The key research comes from the labs of Dr. French Anderson, under the guidance of Dr. Maria Gordon and Dr. Frederick Hall.
Looks like it is pretty cellular, and all the cell lines are represented.
What they discovered is a gene that's responsible for the growth of cancer cells.
Looks like our vector is safe.
By specially engineering another gene that stops the cell growth, and by designing a vehicle to deliver that gene, called a vector, the team has developed a powerful cancer therapy.
So we are really at the cutting edge of being able to find a solution to prolong the life, if not hopefully to cure.
What Dr. Gordon and Dr. Hall have done is to package this gene within a viral vector, which then is engineered to go to the area of pathology. And the hope is that by doing that and concentrating the viral vector right in the area of a cancer, that enough cancer cells will get the gene that blocks their cell division to be able to then hopefully eliminate the cancer. It can work beautifully in animal models, but of course human beings are another matter.
So we're able to put the vector in the bloodstream and have it find the lesion.
Dr. Hall is the molecular biologist who found the cancer gene and did the engineering.
Here we have the liver of a mouse that's been penetrated by the cancer cells, and untreated we see large tumor masses. After repeated infusions of the targeted injectable vectors bearing the therapeutic gene, we have dramatic reduction in the tumor size, volume, and mass in these animals.
What it will mean is, for Lee, would be that he would live to fulfill his career as an actor and have a good life.
I like the idea of somebody coming in and trying to help. I like that. I like that a lot because you know that there's somebody trying to do something.
There are also many companies banking on the wonders of gene therapy. Dr. Bill Heseltine runs Human Genome Sciences. He's betting the $6 billion biotech firm and his reputation on this new branch of medicine. Tonight, he's come to the Maryland High-Tech Council Awards to accept the honor for Best Biotech Company of the Year.
It's a pleasure to welcome all of you to the Council's annual dinner and awards ceremony.
Dr. Heseltine is using the millions raised by his firm to create a new type of pharmaceutical company with a new type of drug.
They won't be more chemicals. They will be drawn from the human substances, our genes, our proteins, our antibodies, and our cells. That with that medicine, we will be able to do things for disease that we haven't been able to do before. Rebuild the body from the inside out, replace and repair what is damaged by disease, injured by trauma, and eventually worn by time. With your help, we can make this a healthier world. Thank you.
In the labs of human genome sciences, no one is sequencing the human genome. They're taking the next step, working out what the genes do. For months, scientists here have tested a protein called Bliss. Proteins are made by the genes and regulate everything from our breathing to our body temperature. At HGS, they discovered that Bliss played a critical role. It triggered the body to make antibodies. For a former AIDS researcher like Dr. Heseltine, it was a dramatic breakthrough.
I would call it the Moby-Dick of immunology. Nobody found it. Using a very systematic approach, we did find it. In less than a year from that discovery of what this molecule did, we believe we'll have that as a drug in patients. The first patients we hope to treat are patients with inherited immune deficiency. There are about 4,000 in the United States. They have no effective treatment today.
The gene that produces Bliss isn't the only one HGS has found. The company has isolated 14,000 of the most medically promising genes and applied for patents on 8,000 of them.
I think it would be unfortunate if a large fraction of the information about us, of the biological instruction book, were tied up in a meshwork of licensing and patenting regulations that made it difficult for anybody who wants to study this information to do so.
Dr. Collins is not afraid of patents. Dr. Collins has filed patents of his own on human genes and their medical uses. Dr. Collins is a government official who, like all government officials, job is to create technology to benefit all of us. His fear is a fear of being beaten to sequencing the human genome. And if he is beaten, it's good for humanity because it means it's happened more quickly.
There has to be a balance here, and I share the European concern about whether it is really a good thing to have so much of this information, which is so basic, so far upstream of any product, tied up in patent protections.
Without a patent that protects a product, or without a patent that protects a means to discover a drug, most, and I would venture to say all pharmaceutical companies, would not develop drugs.
All right, go ahead, stand up.
For Lauren Reimer, the outcome of this war over patents is critical.
Can you put your arms up? Okay, now stand up.
Lauren was born with a rare genetic disorder called congenital myasthenia. It stops messages from her brain getting to her muscles.
Step over a step.
Every week, she visits a physiotherapist with her mother, Patty. But Lauren is still so weak, she has a special tube in her throat for breathing, in case the muscles in her neck collapse.
Arms up.
For Lauren and her family, it's always been a struggle.
Okay, try it again. Okay, good job.
Well, at the beginning, they said she wasn't going to make it. I felt she was going to make it all along. I just felt a very strong bond between Lauren and I. I know when she would be laying there so sick she couldn't even open her eyes, I would read to her and just do different things, talk to her and try to make her feel like there was someone there for her. Because I felt if it was to be that she didn't make it, I wanted her to know that there was someone there that loved her. And so I would read to her and so forth, and I just felt she was going to make it.
10 years on, Lauren and her family have learned to live with her disorder. Now all Lauren wants is to be like everybody else.
At school, I do the regular things like math and science and health. And we don't go out for recesses often, but if we do, I don't really do a lot of the things because they won't let me plan any of the equipment, so I just kind of go on my scooter.
How's that make you feel?
I'm sad because I want to go on equipment.
Bob and Lauren spend a lot of time together. Every week they have breakfast at their local diner before Lauren heads off to school.
How you feeling this morning, okay?
Bob is an ex-Marine, and he's dedicated his life to finding a cure for his daughter.
Swallow it? Okay. Remember what I told you? You gotta keep eating, you gotta gain some weight now.
I just keep hoping and praying that we get to the right researchers, we get to the right doctors to help her. And I keep emphasizing to her that one day there will be an answer. And hopefully we'll be right there to get it.
We don't need doctors, they have them.
At the moment, there's only one doctor in the world trying to find the gene that causes Lauren's disorder. Bob fears one of the gene hunting companies may already have it, and the cost of getting access to it may be prohibitive.
If it got to the point where they were telling small researchers, like the one that Lauren sees, that information has to be paid for, then I would have a problem with that.
That's the kind of outcome that people are worried about. Too many toll booths on this road to discovery could end up making people not want to travel on the road.
Nobody, neither Human Genome Sciences or other private companies, exercises their patent rights against universities, scientists who are doing the work, research for research's sake. The only time that patent rights get enforced is when people try to expropriate your discoveries, whether you're a university scientist, a government scientist, a pharmaceutical discovery scientist, for their own profit.
If you imagine that the genome has been parceled up into a lot of territory that has fences around it saying this part is already claimed, then somebody who has a really good idea about how to understand how tens of thousands of genes operate together in health or disease may find that they have to do an awful lot of legal work before they can actually do the experiments, because they have so many different groups to get licenses from, and maybe royalties that are going to be so onerous that it won't be worth their while to do the experiment at all.
It's a complete smokescreen. Nobody inhibits academic research with patents on human genes. We don't, nobody does.
For early explorers, North Carolina's Cape Fear coast was a place of desolation and dread. A naked elbow of shoals that caught the roll of the Atlantic as it swept from the Arctic to the Gulf of Mexico. A place to beware. For Terry Sargent, Cape Fear was a dream come true. After years of hard work in the north, she and her husband Harry came to Wilmington in search of a better life.
It would have been nice to take it out this morning, have some coffee, and could have brought some bagels.
They both found good jobs, bought a house, and this boat. Then, just a few days before Christmas last year, Terry was fired.
It crushed me, and I have never been this crushed in my life. And I'm just beginning to pull myself up a little bit to move forward. I don't have a choice. I have to start looking for a job. I have to start looking for ways of making money so that my family and I can just move forward.
The better we can make it look, the better for selling it.
That's true.
Terry has a genetic disorder called alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency. A malfunctioning gene fails to make a protein needed to protect her lungs. Without it, they slowly deteriorate the way metal rusts in the rain. There's a treatment, but it's extremely expensive, $35,000 a year, a cost that was completely covered by Terry's employer. Unfortunately, the company was self-insured.
After the shock wore off a little bit and I could start thinking through what had happened, it strongly occurred to me that when no other pieces came together, that I was let go because of the cost of my treatments.
Ironically, Terry's former company, Hanover Excess, is an insurance broker. Terry joined them in 1996 and was in charge of the policy processing department, where she managed 11 people. Since the beginning, Terry's received top performance reviews. Each year, she was praised for her positive impact on the company and for her dedication. Last year was no different.
I had my year-end review in December, the first part of December. And at that time, the president of the company, along with the vice president of the company, told me that I had a great value to the company and that I was a major part of the team and that my work was greatly needed in the company and that I was very talented. And they just went on, and it just made me feel really good that I was so important. And then they offered a 10% raise.
Three weeks later, after returning from a year-end planning session, Terry was called into a meeting. It was 5 days before Christmas, just 2 months since she'd started her therapy.
I was in at 8:15 in the morning, and I walked through the door. The assistant manager met me at the door and said, "Terry, come with me up to the conference room." And on our way up, I was like, wow, the weekend was so great. You know, I hope we're going to continue talking about that now. I was really excited about it. And I go into the conference room, and the president of the company joined us. And they sat down, I sat down, and we talked a little bit about the weekend. And then the president of the company said, "Terry, we're very sorry to tell you, but your services are no longer needed."
Hanover's president, David Parker, declined an invitation to speak on camera. But over the phone, he said that Terry had signed a resignation letter, claimed that her managerial skills were not of a level that fit her duties, that her health condition was not an issue, and that she had asked to leave.
It wouldn't matter if I hated the job. There was no way you're going to leave a job where you have medical benefits to nothing, to having absolutely nothing. That would be committing medical suicide, physical suicide, as well as financial suicide.
But what about the letter of resignation? I mean, he says the letter of resignation shows that you voluntarily left the company, and therefore backs up his argument that your departure was a mutual agreement.
Isn't it sad that when people are in shock, that they're almost coerced into something that they have no time to even think through? And that's how I feel that letter of resignation is. Because given a half an hour, maybe only 15 minutes for me to have this little bit of the shock wore off, there is no way I would have ever written that letter of resignation.
The Employment Security Commission of North Carolina has examined Terry's case and determined that her resignation was forced and that there was no misconduct or substantial fault on her part. In some ways, Terry's lucky. North Carolina is one of the few states with legislation banning genetic discrimination. But there's no comprehensive federal legislation to protect others like Terry.
It is quite clear from detailed policy analysis that's been done that the only way to solve this is with a federal legislative initiative. And there are draft bills that have been widely circulated and endorsed by people highly ranking, including the President of the United States, that need just to get passed.
I believe that science is going to come to my rescue. Genetic science is just overflowing every single day with brand new things. And my only hope is that alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency is significant enough that science will tackle this.
In the labs of Washington University and at half a dozen other facilities around the world, teams are working 24 hours a day to complete the human genome. At Celera Genomics, the supercomputer is working at full capacity to complete Craig Venter's 70 million piece puzzle. But as one race nears its end, a new one is beginning. The race to redefine modern medicine. Despite having a hole in her throat for the trach, Lauren Reimer loves to swim. And despite the academic jealousies, the uncertainties about patents, and the years of research ahead, Lauren's father believes that one day the human genome will give Lauren and others like her their lives back.
Dr. Maselli is the doctor that she sees, told me that he promised me also one day he would see her walking down the aisle, and to me that would be the happiest day in my life. And like I said, I love Lauren, and I hope that day comes about.